Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is now 10 to 11. This was supposed to be a 10:30 class. Oh, so why am I so late? Why am I so late? I am so late because I'm busy preparing. That's why I'm so late. These classes, I love them, but they really take a lot out of me. That's just the Matthias Advarim, that's the fact. So that's the story. Doing Rebbe's Kapital. And we're holding Oy Zayin, and as you know, we've undertaken what many would say, including my reasonable self, is a totally unrealistic expectation to do each day 8 Pesukim. I found this especially hard when it came to Zayin for a number of reasons. Reason number one, there's a lot of predisposition. You know, there's a famous niggin, Zechar Daval Avdecha, Zeis Nechamas Iba'ani, and there are other Pesukim, Zemira Sayli Chukecha, Zeidem Halitzuni Ad Miyoid. There's so many Pesukim in this Zayin that we know from other sources that sort of predispose you to a certain interpretation of these 8 Pesukim. And you don't want to do that, right? You want to learn and see what the Mefarshim say and then come up with an insight which is either consistent with what our predisposition is or that's different than its predisposition, but it's a little bit more loyal and consistent with what the Rishonim say about these 8 Pesukim. That made things very complicated. Additionally, I found it very, very hard to find the core. So what is the core? What is the essence of these 8 Pesukim? And also, another reason I find these 8 Pesukim, because they're quite pessimistic. It's very depressing. Because superficially, at least, these 8 Pesukim talk about the Eibishter punishing the Shoyim. And almost like David the Melech saying, you know, it's worse being religious because you see how much they suffer. And that's not something which as Chassidim Bechlal and as Chassidi Chabad, Befrat, and as Chassidim of the Rebbe, Bepratei Pratius, we're disposed towards, we're inclined. So this made the research, this made the trying to find the heart of these 8 Pesukim particularly difficult. So let's start by reading the 8 Pesukim. That's what I always do. I'll read the 8 Pesukim inside. First, I'll read in Deutsch the 8 Pesukim, and then we'll go from there. That's how we'll do this, okay? Pasuk Memtes. You realize that after today we will have done almost a third. It's nothing compared to what we need to do, but we're a lot farther along than we were when this whole journey began. So I'm starting Pasuk Memtes, and I'm reading till Pasuk Nunvav. Zechar Davar Le'avdecha. Zechar Davar Le'avdecha doesn't mean you should remember what you promised your servant. None of the Mefarshim say that. Zechar Davar Le'avdecha means the words that you promised your servant are remembered by me. That's how the Mefarshim touch it. Zechar Davar, the words that you spoke to me. And again, everybody keeps going back to Nasan HaNavi. Some of the people of Nasan HaNavi, that they wish to promise David HaMelech that after his Avedis there would be a tshuva and a kapara and a re-embracing. But Beklal, the promises the Eibush made to David HaMelech are remembered la'avdecha, your servant remembers them. Allah sheyichaltani. And in those promises you gave me hope. In those promises you gave me prayer. And because of those promises, which I haven't forgotten, yichaltani, there's a certain loyalty that I have, a certain ability to stick to it, no matter what the challenges are, because I'm looking forward to the positive times. Zeis, those words, that promise, Nechamasi is my consolation, ba'onyi in my poverty, in my impoverished state, because your words give me life. Zaydim, wanton sinners, bad people, they're making fun of me, and they're reaching the pneumius of my kishkis in their litzonas. I haven't leaned away from your Torah. Zacharti mishpatecha. I remembered your way you operate in judgment, me'elam, forever, from the beginning of time, Adeshem, ve'esnecham, and this consoles me. Zal ofa, trepidation, achazosni, grips me. Mereshoyim, when I see what the Chazal called derech hashoyim sleicha, that the sinners seem to be doing so wonderfully. Eis ve'teresach, who have abandoned the Torah, And my consolation comes in this. When I found myself in Mogur, Mogur means in a difficult situation, in a difficult time, in the hardships, I remembered the Torah, and the Torah, the Chukiyat Torah, gave me reason to sing and to celebrate, and the joy of Limud Torah, and the joy of understanding how much Torah's power is over the world, like it says in Tanya, they gave me joy when I was in a difficult situation. So I remembered even at night your name had Hashem, and I guarded your Torah. A lot of the Mefarshim say, by night I remembered your name, and by day I learned your Torah. This was to me because I guarded your mitzvahs. Those are the 8 Pesukim. Like I told you in my introduction, the simple pshat in these Pesukim is David HaMelech looking around, and he sees Derech Rishoyim Sleicha. He sees that the Rishoyim are succeeding, and he's finding it very, very hard to retain his faith, his sense of connection to the Torah, and to hold on to it and not to abandon it. And he draws strength from the promises the Eibishter made him. He draws strength from the Torah itself to overcome those fears, to overcome those tendencies, and to remain loyal. That's the superficial spirit of these 8 Pesukim. And arguably, it's not just the superficial spirit of these 8 Pesukim. It's actually the point of these 8 Pesukim. Yeah. Now, according to our pattern, what I'm supposed to do right now is tell you which is the key word of these 8 Pesukim. But I want to make a change a little bit. And I want to say 2 things first, 2 ideas. And then I'm going to tell you what I think is the words that are at the core of these 8 Pesukim. And I'm actually going to say 2 words. I'm having a very, very hard time identifying one word that's the key. I'm going to tell you 2 words, but I'm going to save that for a moment. The first thing that I want to talk about is this concept called Hashgacha. Some of the Rishonim mention it. You know, we're Chabad, so we learn Chassidus, and we're connected to the Shittas of Baal Shem Tov and Hashgacha Pratis, right? We all know the Baal Shem Tov's opinion about Hashgacha Pratis. And what we know about the Baal Shem Tov's opinion about Hashgacha Pratis is, the classic terminology is, it's a filu al datzach, which means we don't believe that Hashgacha Pratis is partial, that some creations have greater Hashgacha, that other creations have lesser Hashgacha. We believe that Hashgacha Pratis is universal. Moreover, not only do we believe that Hashgacha Pratis is universal, the previous Rebbe actually says we believe in what's called Negeh L'Klal Kavanas Habriya. Every minutia, every little teeny tiny thing in the world touches the greater purpose of the creation. The entire purpose of the creation is affected by every little thing. So when we hear Rishonim talk about Hashgacha Pratis, we get thrown for a loop because they speak about Hashgacha in a very different light. But of course, if you've studied and listened to the Rebbe, you know that there's really no contradiction between what the Rishonim say about Hashgacha, what the Baal Shem Tov says about Hashgacha. It all fits together in a beautiful puzzle. Because in the words of the Rishonim, Hashgacha changes from creature to creature. Some people Hashem pays more attention to, some people Hashem pays less attention to. Some people in their lives, you see the reasonable hand of God, the logical hand of God in a much more intimate and detailed way. And for other people, either you don't see it at all, or you see it only in some things and not in all things. Forgive me for a second. In other words, there's a concept of Hashgacha, which most of the Rishonim talk about, that sounds almost like schar. If you're a better person, you have a greater Hashgacha. If you're not such a good person, you have a lesser Hashgacha. And the Rebbe spoke about this many times, and the way the Rebbe resolved it was by saying everything has Hashgacha. But not everything in Hashgacha makes sense. Not everything in Hashgacha can be reasonably comprehended. And that's the issue. Everything, Hashem governs everything. But not all of his governance is on a level where we're able to understand the reason or the logic or the value of the Hashgacha. And that's what the Rishonim mean when they say that David HaMelech had a special Hashgacha. And that's one of the aspects of these 8 Pesukim is that David HaMelech is falling back on this hashgacha. Falling back on this hashgacha means that David HaMelech has this innate sense that he has a special relationship with the Eibishter. And not just he has a special relationship with the Eibishter because he thinks so, but that the Eibishter thinks that there's a special connection, a special bond between him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's true, the Tanakh says so, the Chazal say so. I told this to you the other day that the Eibishter has personalities that you could say he picks on, right? Adam Rishon, Reuven ben Yainkiv, Shaul ben Kish. And then the Eibishter has favorites. One of his favorites is Avraham Avinu, and another one of his favorites is David HaMelech. And there's reasons why. But one of the things that David falls back on, in the worst of times, is the acknowledgement that something is going on between him and Hashem that's very, very special. The way he's saved and spared miraculously from catastrophe, from calamity, from death, is remarkable. And he sees that him and the Eibush have something going. Now, of course, Chassidus will tell you that David HaMelech's partnership in this special relationship is his leiv nishbos, his brokenheartedness. It's not his ego, and it's not his intellect, and not his scholarship, and it's his humility. David HaMelech is David HaMelech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim because of his bittul. Now, of course, the other side of that bittul is that he's Chai V'Kayim. He lives forever, and he's blessed, and he's enriched with all kinds of koiches and mailis. But whatever the reasons are, David has this innate and inherent sense that him and Hashem have a special bond. And this special bond is severely tested, repeatedly. The Eibishter throughout his life puts him in situations where he says, really? In other words, it seems on the one hand he has this incredible special connection to Hashem, but on the other hand he seems to suffer so many setbacks that he can have reason to question it. I just want to say parenthetically that I teach, this is Kuf Yates, right, Psalm 119, I teach the Rebbe's Kapital each year. Now before this year, the last few years was of course Hallel. We did 6 Kapital of Hallel. Each Hallel, the way I taught it, each Hallel is a different Hilo, it's a different praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you have Kuf Yches, Kuf Yzayin. Kuf Tezayin is Ahavti. Adeshem Kishma Hashem es Kaili. The way I learned it, the way I taught it, and of course I didn't make it up, it says in the Midrashim and the Rishonim, is David HaMelech Psalm. David HaMelech is singing. And in that psalm, in that capital, you see these two sides. On the one hand, he suffers so much. On the other hand, he sees this extraordinary hashgacha. And I think that idea plays itself out also in these 8 Pesukim, Mem Tes till Nun Vav, that David is articulating the challenges that he experiences in his life. But more than articulating the challenges, he's articulating how those challenges can create doubt. Really, is it worth it? You know, like Cain said, "Les din v'les dayin." There's no judgment, there's no judgment. And David HaMelech knows yesh din v'yesh dayin, but sometimes the circumstances make it so difficult to hold on to that belief. And he has to hang on for dear life. Or to say it in different words, the Eibishter is so great that even if he creates the biggest tzaddik, he can find for him a test which is challenging. That's what happens to David HaMelech. David HaMelech has this very special relationship with the Eibishter, but he also has tests and challenges that lead him to actually question that relationship with the Eibishter. That's the first thing I want to say. And the second thing I want to say is that in this Pedic there's a word which is very, very important. It's in Pasuk Nun Beis. Zacharti mishpatecha me'olam. The word me'olam, it's only once in these 8 Pesukim, is a very, very important word. Because what the word me'olam speaks to is you have to have a sense of history. You have to have a cosmic sense. You can't have tunnel vision. When it comes to Hashem, you can't look only at today. You have to have a sense of everything that's gone on, everything that will go on from the beginning of time till the end of time. Because only when you have Zacharti Mishpatecha Me'olam, a sense of how the Eibishter operates in his world on a cosmic scale, can you have an objective, you have a correct sense of what's actually transpiring. Just to give you a simple example, yeah? The question is redundant, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I want to make out the point, yeah? Are the Jewish people the luckiest people in the world or the most unlucky people in the world? Usually the Jewish people, it's the happiest or the saddest history. Now, you can legitimately answer that question both ways. It would be true to say no one has suffered more than the Jews, and no one is blessed more than the Jews. They're both true. But it depends on your view. When you look at a day or a week or a month or a year, you will usually conclude that the Jewish people's lives are not very good. They're suffering, they're criticized, they're blamed. When you step back and you look at history, look at the world, and you look at where power and success was, you look where the Jews journeyed, they're amazingly blessed. And that's the meaning of the word Zacharti Mishpatecha Me'olam. If you want to have a correct view of what's really going on, you have to have a cosmic view. And that's one of the things that these 8 Pesukim are describing. David HaMelech is describing his tests, his severe tests. And of course, the issue with the tests is not that they're hard. That's hard enough. Is that they're literally bringing him to doubt. If you imagine David HaMelech in a state of doubt. And he overcomes that doubt with these 2 ideas that I just shared. His reminding himself of the Hashgacha, the special connection that Hashem has with him, which he's earned, but nevertheless he has. And the Zacharti Mishpatecha Me'olam, you have to always remember the big picture. Don't think about only today and yesterday and tomorrow. And you'll see when it all plays out, when the dust settles, when the game is over, so to speak, it's going to play out in a way that's just, righteous, correct. And I guess the right language is you got to hang on. You have to hold on, not lose your faith. I had a relationship. I would like to say the word friend, but I'm not comfortable saying the word friend because he could have been my father, for sure. When I started teaching Mechon Chana, we had Rabbi Wadowski, Olav Shalom Zachrein Levrach. He's gone already 20 years. He's gone 20 years. His name was Shmuel Levi Yitzchak ben Rav Levi Yitzchak. He was named after his own father, so you understand yourself. He came into the world under very difficult conditions, and he was a Yid who always looked for emes, and he journeyed. He started off in Chaim Berlin, he ended up by the Kloisenberger Rebbe, then he ended up by the Skalener Rebbe, and ended up in Lubavitch. But he never went away. He took all the good from the various different drachim that he had been involved with in his early life into his trajectory, to his future. Anyway, so I used to visit him a lot, especially when he was ill. When you walked into his house, right at the front door, there was a picture frame. And then, of course, after he passed away, his Rebbetzin had it in her apartment. She also, unfortunately, is gone. And it was a picture frame. And the picture frame, it said, the B'Yisrael of Ruzhin said, before Mashiach comes, Emunah is going to be like a string that is going to extend from one edge of the world to the other. And it's going to be shaking vigorously in the wind. And you're going to have to hang on for dear life to remain a Maimin. The Heilig Eruzhiner, a great grandson of the Mizitcher Maggid, that it's been said by many Gedolim that he was the Neshama of the Baal Shem Tov, he certainly carried the Baal Shem Tov's name, said that before Mashiach comes, the moon is going to be like a string, extending from one edge of the world to the other, and you have to hold on to it with the letzte koiches. I want you to know that I saw once in a sefer something shocking, that the Heilig Baal Shem Tov himself said to the Pinchas of Koretz, the Pinchas Koretzer, quote, Pinje, du glaubst, sie wird kommen einmal eine Zeit, dass einmal kommen eine Zeit, was für jeden wie mir und dir wird sein schwer zu glauben in dem Eibischen. Ad kan l'shen HaKadosh. Pinchas, can you believe? There will be a time in the future when for Jews like you and like me, it'll be hard to believe in God. The Baal Shem Tov is said, again, I think, I know I saw it in a sefer. I think I remember which sefer I saw it in, but it's been so long, and my memory is not what it used to be. But this is what I recall. Pinchas, there's going to be a time in the future when even the Jews and like me and like you not believe in the Eibishter. These 8 Pesukim are speaking to this. That David HaMelech's life is hard. But because his life is hard, his emunah is challenged. His conviction is under siege. And he describes the challenge and he describes how he survives. Now let me get to the 2 words which I have decided, which I've chosen, which I believe, which I'm thinking are the yesod of these 8 pesukim. Again, there are 2 words. I'm not using one. I'm using 2 words because I think they're both important. On the one hand, I think each one by itself is not adequate. We're going to talk about these words, and then of course we're going to learn the 8 Pesukim with all of this introduction. The words are Nechama and Zeus. Nechama, or Nichum, Nun Ches Mem, that's the Shadish, means consolation. And of course Zeus means this. So let's talk about each of these 2 words separately, and then I'll explain to you why I see these 2 words as critical. The word Nechama appears several times in these 8 Pesukim. It's in Pasuk Nun, Zeis Nechamasi, and then of course it's in Nun Beis, Zacharti Mishpedachem Elam Ad Hashem Ve'esnecham, and that's it. Now the word Zeus appears many times, right? A number of times. In Pasuk Nun it begins Zeus Nechamasi B'Yani, and then I guess it's only twice. Pasuk Nun Vav begins Zeus Hoiseli Ki Fikudecha Natati. So one at a time. Let's talk about the word Nichumin first. The word Nechumin, Nechama, has many definitions. The first is it means depressed, sad. When a person's in a state of Nechama, they're in a state of doubt. They're questioning their whole life. They're depressed. Nechumin is a negative energy that fills a person because they have been challenged sufficiently. They've been challenged so much so as to doubt their life and to doubt their purpose and to doubt their direction and so on. And of course, what's even worse than doubt is regret, right? From the doubt, which is brought into the person because of circumstances and because of events, can come nichumin vayinochem alibe, to regret, to actually say, I want to go in a different direction. And of course, these 2 ideas remind me of the story, which is now so famous, that there's a very prominent Jewish rabbi, a Jewish Orthodox rabbi, a big Talmud Chacham, an incredibly successful man whose name I don't remember at the moment, but he was a young man, and he was in a midlife crisis. He wasn't in his midlife, but he was in a midlife crisis. And he was in a position, I've heard him tell the story many times, where he was really considering throwing everything away and starting over. So he called up 770, and he asked to speak to the Rebbe. Rabbi Chadakov picked up the phone. Unbeknownst to this rabbi, whose name I can't remember, Rabbi Chadakov is in the Rebbe's room. And when the phone rang, the Rebbe told him to lift up the phone, which didn't always happen. Rabbi Chadakov picked up the phone and said, hello, who is this? His name is Rabbi Weinreb. Rabbi Weinreb. His connection to the Rebbe was Rabbi Naftali Berg, alav Shalom, who was a Talmud Chacham and a Goan and Allah Zachar, very chassid. He was a scientist. He was such a chassidish yid, unbelievable. So Rabbi Naftali Berg was close to this Rabbi Weinreb. In his story, he says the word Naftali. We shouldn't say Naftali without the Rebbe. Although God will mirab mishmei. Anyway, so he called up Chadakov. Chadakov picks up the phone and he said, I'm a yid from Maryland. And he remembers I did not tell him my name. A yid from Maryland, and I need to speak to the Rebbe because I'm going through some issues, questions, doubts. So the Rebbe says, who is it? And he can hear the Rebbe's voice in the background. So he says, a yid from Maryland. So the Rebbe says, what's Willer? What does he want? So Rabbi Chadakov says that this person is going through all kinds of difficulties. He wants to come see the Rebbe. And the Rebbe repeats, says to Rabbi Chadakov on the phone, Zogem soll reden mit Weinreb. Tell him to have a conversation with Weinreb. Now he hears the Rebbe say this. And he's so shocked. He's aghast. He did not say his name. The Rebbe said he should talk to himself. Weinreb. So Chadakov says to him, did you hear what the Rebbe said? Now he heard what the Rebbe said, but he wanted to hear it again because it was so overwhelming. Rabbi Chadakov, the Rebbe said, you should, in Maryland there's a yid named Weinreb, and you can talk to him about all of these in Yonim. So he tells Rabbi Chadakov, my name is Weinreb. Ich bin Weinreb. And he says, I hear in the phone how Rabbi Chadakov gasps. Rabbi Chadakov was a malubit benissim. Rabbi Chadakov worked with the Rebbe. He saw tens of thousands of Eisos Ameisim, but it got him. This one got him. And so Rabbi Chadakov says to the Rebbe, sagt, as heißt Weinreb. He says that his name is Weinreb. So the Rebbe said, Oi bazoi, darf reden mit sich allein. Amol darf man reden mit sich allein. If that's the case, let him talk to himself. Sometimes you have to consult yourself. And then he finishes the story by saying that when he has difficulties in his life, he sits down, he learns the Rebbe Sasiche, and then he talks to himself. Redet sich durch mit sich allein. And of course, this kama and the kudus to the sipur, but the vote of confidence, just the vote of confidence that the Rebbe says to a yid who's going through a hardship and he's doubting himself. Nechama loshen sofik, to the extent of nechama loshen charata. Maybe I should redirect my whole life. And the Rebbe gave him a jolt of faith in himself. And then the process of getting out of his difficult situation became a question of working through the details, because the yesod, this sadness which brings to the doubt and it brings to the regret, was lifted. There's an old adage, commonsensical adage, which says never ever make a decision when you're depressed, because it'll always be the wrong one, 100% of the time. And that's what's going on in these 8 Pesukim. There's nechama. Nechama means there's doubt, there's regret, rooted in a depression that David HaMelech is experiencing, and he has to overcome it. And what's strange about it is that the same word nechama also means consolation. The same word nechama also means healing. You have in Hebrew many words that connote opposites. Like Rashi says, vayoresh means to inherit, and it means to dispose, to throw out. And that's what you have here. Nechumen means to regret, to doubt, to be sad. And nechuma means to find strength. Hamokim yenachem eschem. The nechama, the consolation, the empowerment to turn that all around. And it seems to me that that's what's happening in these 8 Pesukim. David is attempting to articulate serious challenges. Like I said before, the challenge is half of it. But the doubting of self and the question of maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, as a yid whose whole life is Teira V'Avodah, as all the Mefarshim explain, is worse even than the tzaddis themselves. And Zeis Nechamasi, he finds consolation, he finds healing, he finds the ability to take nechama, which means uncertainty and doubt and regret, into nechama, to consolation and encouragement and so forth and so on. And al derech haremes, this is just a remes, this I'm just making up. You could say that the shadish of the word nechama is from the 2 letters cham, ches mem, which means warmth, heat. And what do we know about chamimus? You have kiyei cham levove, v'hikohu nefesh. A person's blood can boil and it can kill a man, right? And on the other hand, you can also have a heat which creates life. So the word nechama, it means a fire. This fire can be Eishlan Eris, it can be a fire which is very, very destructive. And the fire could be and you can even say on a deeper level that it's not 2 different fires, it's the same fire, just its exterior is challenge and depression and doubt and regret, and its pnimius is an encouragement to be more empowered than avodas Hashem. And I believe this is the key word in these 8 Pesukim, the word nechama. But in addition, I want to talk about the word zois. Zois is lashon zachar, even though it's with a tough, right? There is v'emuna kol zois v'kayim aleinu. Zois is zachar and emuna is nekeva. And Zeis goes on the Teira. V'zeis ha-Teira. All over Kabbalah and Chassidus, the word Zeis, and also in Sefer Musar, the Teira is called Zeis. Why is Teira called Zeis? Because the Teira is a direct revelation from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As the Rebbe always says, the Lashon Marabed's, boy, you point with your finger of aim and you say, Zeh, this. And Zeis means the same thing. And from Zeis, from the Teira, comes a koyach. When you have a clarity, and you know for sure, that Moshe emes v'teras emes, this is emes. It's emes because you could see clearly and vividly that this is emes. The power that comes from zeh, the power that comes from zois, the power from being sure that this is true, is such that even when you find yourself in the worst kind of nechama, sadness, doubt, regret, the zois, nechamasi, the zois, the Torah, the certainty about that this is emes, becomes the nechama, it becomes the consolation that turns it around, and it gives the person the koyach to retain his emunah and continue being an Eved Elokim. I have to tell you that I sit here and I teach a class. Yesterday I gave a class in the Maimon for 2 hours. No one can listen to 2 hours. What am I doing? So I sit here and I ask myself, should I say this? Should I say this? there was something that I was hesitating to say, but I'm going to say it. It'll take some time, a few minutes. I can take a lot of time, but I want to say it anyway because I think it's important. And I think this is another way to express the spirit of this Perek. I think I spoke about it recently here. I spoke about it recently, but I forgot if it was here or was someplace else. I did say it here. I once spoke at a regional convention for Shluchim. And I started my talk with the story of the Rebbetzin and her sister. The Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka and her sister Shengel. That when the previous Rebbe was arrested, they came into the house and they went into their bedroom. And the agents, Lulav, Nachmanson, Yeshiva Bachrim, descendants of Hasidim, asked them if they belonged to the party. So she said, no, we don't belong to the party. So they said to her, Favos nicht, why don't you belong to the party? So Shengel, the Rebbetzin was not much of a talker. Shengel screamed at them and said, you asked me if I belong to the party, I told you no. Why is none of your business? And then she said, I belong to Tatn's party. I belong to my father's party. That's it. I belong to my father's party. That's what I belong to my father's party. So I told this story and I made a point. In human nature, we all compete. That's the way it goes. In the world, everyone is competing. But not everyone's a king, right? Not everyone is a king. Or to say differently, there's not as many philosophies of life as there are people on earth. There's a few philosophies about what's right and what's important at any given time and place. So you want to align yourself with a winner. Everybody wants to be a winner. Am I going to be a Democrat or a Republican? So officially you say, well, whose ideas do I like? But unofficially you say, who's more likely to win? Now, of course, some people are believers and they dedicate themselves to a cause or an idea which looks like it's losing and they hope to turn it around. But no one's going to dedicate themselves to an idea and fight when they know for sure they're not going to win. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to belong to something which is a winner. This is one of the tests that the Jewish people face. Where is our faith, right? The Jews were given a Torah 3,350 years ago. Since that time, the world has changed 100 times. And the Jews' existence has changed many times. Where we live and how we're doing is constantly in a state of flux. And everyone is trying to figure out how to survive. You want to hold on to your Jewish values. But forgive me for being so direct. You don't want to be a loser. You have to determine. You don't want to be a loser. So this is a test. At what point is being a Jew going to become so expensive that I'm going to say I can't do it anymore? What Shendel was saying to these KGB people was, listen, I believe in an ideal, in a philosophy that's thousands of years old. But we have patience. We're going to win in the end. The fact that now it looks like we're losing is not a cause for me to abandon my path. Some of us, when as they say in English, it gets a little hot in the kitchen, we step out. Some of us are tougher. It gets hot in the kitchen, we persevere. But so to speak, you could say everybody has a breaking point, or almost everybody has a breaking point. When you get to that point, you know, whatever the word you want to use, you quit. The ultimate goal is that you should never quit. And I think this is one of the ways of understanding what David HaMelech is doing in these 8 Pesukim. He's describing a struggle, not just a practical struggle, but a struggle in his head. Is this way of life, is this value system worth sacrificing your life for? And his answer is an emphatic yes. Because, you know, I have a big picture. I see the way the Eibush Hashgacha operates. What is right and what is true and what is correct will persevere, will win. And that's really what Mashiach means, right? Mashiach means that the Eibush wins, that Torah wins, that Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach wins. But until you get to the Kretschmer, until you get to Mashiach, it goes through 1,001 different kinds of Goliaths, whether they're Goliaths Gashmirs or they're Goliaths Ruchnios, all different kinds of challenges that people have. And you have to persevere. For some people it's easy, for some people it's hard. A lot of people quit. In the last 150 years, so many Jews abandoned Judaism. It wasn't like they didn't care about Jews, they just didn't want to lose anymore. They joined the communist part of the Jew, the Yiddishist party, they joined the Zionist movement. And so many people will tell you that the winning party is Zionism. Zionism is not Torah. And it becomes very difficult. And you have to have an akudah, a zois, that you hold on to, that's nechomasi, that turns around my doubt and my sadness and my regret into a consolation, to remain loyal to Derech HaTorah without allowing the stresses and the challenges to dissuade us. And again, I'm saying this is how I see these 8 Pesukim. So like I said, I had a very, very hard time hearing this point in these 8 Pesukim. The primary reason is because these Pesukim we all know, we sing them. So we have a predisposition to what these 8 Pesukim mean. And I'm not really saying anything that's very different from the way we sing these 8 Pesukim. This is a song that everybody sings. It's a very beautiful niggin, a beautiful tune. And the words are, of course, very potent, very poignant. So and I wanted to get past that presumption to see if I could hear what the Pesukim are saying. I think that what I've given you is credible. And again, I'm not trying to be controversial or different. I think this is what's going on. So now we're going to learn. We're going to learn the 8 Pesukim. Okay? The first pasuk is Zachar Dov Avdecha, which means your servant remembers your words. Zachar Dov Avdecha doesn't mean you should remember your servant. That's a misnomer. Zachar Dov Avdecha means your servant remembers the word that you gave him. Al Asher Yichaltani, because you've given me consolation in the past. And the nature of that consolation was that, in historic terms, I'm going to forgive you for the Aveda of Basheva. You're going to get back to your position after the Ma'aseh of Avshalom. And that your children are going to inherit your throne. So that davar is the nechama, is the word that David holds on to, that he believes in, that's going to keep him strong, even though he has incredible challenges. Now the word yichaltani, right, has many translations. Yichaltani means I'm waiting for it, right? I'm hoping for it. You promised me. It's a promise. It's a hope. It's a wish. You can use the word ayachel also as a prayer. It also means to pray. But I want to make up a pshetel. You're not supposed to do this, but I want to make up a pshetel anyway. The pshetel is that the word yichaltani, the shaders of the word yichaltani is the word choil. Choil means weekday, ordinary. Zechar davar la'avdech al asher yichaltani. Again, I know that this is just a remes, but what I'm trying to suggest is David HaMelech says that I bring the Eibishter into my chulin. Hashem predominates my life, fills my life all the way to the ordinary, into the plain. This idea that Hashem fills every area of my life, even the ordinary, is because your servant remembers the word. The word means the hashgacha that the Eibush shows David HaMelech. The promises the Eibush gave David HaMelech. And of course, we as Jewish people broaden this to mean the Jewish people are called David, Malchus, whatever the Kabbalah is. It's a long deal. But Zachar Davdacha, every Yid remembers the Davar. And Al Asher Yichaltani, that the Eibush gave us a hope. And the Eibush gave us a prayer. And the Eibush gave us a promise. And this motivates us to bring this even into our ordinary lives. You can also translate the word Yichaltani for the word to begin, to start. That from the first moment, this is the life of a Yid. And then, of course, then you say in the next pasuk, Zeis nechama sibiani. This is my consolation when I'm in an impoverished state. Right? David HaMelech's life is such a mixed bag of highs and lows. The Jewish people's history is such a mixed bags of highs and lows. And David HaMelech's betachon, and therefore the expectation of every Yid betachon, is unbelievable. And the Zois means the Torah. Zois means this promise. Zois means this hashgacha and this sense, like I said to you before, mishpatecha me'olam. You have to see the Eibishter's judgment in a cosmic way and not in a narrow way. Is nechomasi ba'oni, in my most impoverished state, in my most tortured state, it gives me nechoma. Not that I should regret and doubt and depress myself, but I'm consoled. Your words give me life. And of course, the word amida can mean softness. The word amida can mean thought. And the word amida, if you remember the classes that I gave you in the introductions from the word maimed, which is a kinyan. Imrascha, you took possession of us. You were kaina us, not like a strange woman, but like a yavama. You do kaina b'maimed. The Eibush that acquired us was a maimed. And of course, in Lubavitch, a maimed means a maimed chsidis. But maimed is halacha. It's any from kinyanim. The Eibush has a hold on us. Imrascha chiyasni. That amida gives me life. Against the following, Zaydim Helitzuni. Sinners are mocking me, are scoffing at me. And it's very important that I explain this, because people tend to get simplistic about this. When David HaMelech says Zaydim, you know who he's talking about? He's talking about Doeg and Achitophel. He's talking about members of the Sanhedrin. G'doyle Yisrael. Go'oinem Adirim. You know, Kilov, the Gemara says Kilov, that the people used to come to David HaMelech and show him as their Kenish Lenin. So David gave him a son, Kilov ben David, and one of the things that he did was that when people would come and try to show that David was not able to learn, he would embarrass them. These were people, you could say, that became best line for David. David HaMelech was the Nasi Hador. David HaMelech was the only Melech Yisrael who was not only the political leader, but he was also the Nasi Hador. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He was the Gadol B'Yisrael. He's one of the 40 generations of the Messiah. And he had competitors who were great people and great Rishayim. You know, you see a Yid on the street who laughs. That laughter is often jealousy. And it's certainly ignorance. That we're not talking about a let's, we're talking about Zaydim, sinners. And this is something which the Rebbe has taught us. To be a Yid who has, so to speak, lowered himself to the point where the Eibush is throwing him in the junkyard, cutting him out, is so rare. It's so rare. Not the pshat that it doesn't mean Jews who are not religious. For a Yid to achieve this status that the Torah calls him a Zaydim, he's the noun of wanton sin, is a very rare condition. Most people who are, quote, bad, they're not bad. They're ignorant, they're depressed, they're angry. And the Eibush takes that into account. When David HaMelech says Zaydim Elitzuni, he's talking about people who knew so much Torah and knew so much Chassidus and were claiming touch Elech Yidden, and they were the Shoyim. Al Hashem v'Hamashich. It wasn't that they had an issue with David HaMelech. They had an issue with the Eibush, because they knew full well that David HaMelech was Mashiach Hashem. Like Korach. Korach was a Gadol B'Yisrael. He was a Asher B'Gash Misa Beruchnius. And even though he didn't want to say it, his issue wasn't with Aaron HaKohen, his issue was with Moshe Rabbeinu. That's called Zaydim. It's not what people think. It's not the common person who never has not Shemitah or mitzvah. Bechlal today there are no Jews. A Yid said to me, how could, there's a Chassam Sefer, where the Chassam Sefer writes that you're not allowed to be Makar of people who are Machal Shabbos. So I said to him, today you ask such a question? Since the Holocaust, for sure you can't ask such a question. Impossible. Jews today are bad. Jews today are broken. And unschooled, they don't know. And 50 years ago, it was less, but it was also true then. The Rebbe said, Heinz, there's not an apakorsim. There's no apakorsim today. There's no Rishoyim today. There's unfortunately an amaratzis, an ignorance. And you have to teach. And you have to inspire. So don't misunderstand Zaydim, that this means the Stamazai, a guy makes fun of you in shul. Or even a guy makes fun of you on the train. That's not what this is about. We're talking about, to be a bad person, you have to be a great person. Like I said, Achitophel and Doyego Adoimi. These were the people that David HaMelech calls Zaydim. And Elitzuni at Meyoid. They mocked me. And they got under my skin. In other words, they were smart. And they knew who David HaMelech was. David HaMelech had a deep connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and a Moedim Emunah, and a Moedim Kapital. But he was also, David HaMelech had every possible attribute. He was gorgeous. He was talented. He had so much charisma. He knew so much Torah. He was such a great man in so many different ways. But behind all of that was was a sincerity. David HaMelech could, if he would have been a corrupt politician, he would have been 10 Napoleons. He would have been so loved. But the Eibishter was in his heart. And because the Eibishter was in his heart, that was the basis for how he lived. And all of the gifts that the Eibishter gave him, his mind and his heart and his senses, served that purpose. And here you had these smart people saying, fool, cash in. You have so many gifts, and you're going to use them to do what God wants. Make a life for yourself. And this is the Zaydim Elitzuni. They laughed at David HaMelech, so to speak. You have to be frum, but you can have a life also. And you can manipulate the Torah, use the gifts that you have to make yourself a life. David HaMelech didn't have a life. The Gemara says, David HaMelech didn't have a minute for himself. David was a king. And the Chazal say a king is supposed to sleep late. David HaMelech never slept. At midnight there was a Ruach Dreimes would blow and wake him up, and he would sing Shmiras to the Bachas a whole night. And he would paskin Shilas HaHalocha a whole day. You're going to see it later on, this idea, what he did by night and what he did by day. And they laughed at him. My father told me that there was a Yid in Crown Heights who was a Benancho Kadoshi Elyon. He came from a very prominent stock. And he had a very, very famous library. The Rebbe used to actually borrow Sforim from him. I remember being in his house on President. I think now it's free. Because we had a neighbor who was his daughter. And he once told my father, he was talking to my father about the Rebbe. If I had his firm, I would have made myself a good life. The Rebbe lives in a house. And nothing was repaired and nothing was fixed. He said, if I had his business, I would make a living. Go on vacation. David HaMelech could have been a frume Yid, and he could have cashed in on the opportunities that he had. And he wouldn't, because he was an Eved Hashem. And these Gedolim were Mishloitzitz. They laughed at David HaMelech. And the Pasuk says, Ad Me'ed. Zaydim Elitzuni Ad Me'ed. Means Yechida. They laughed at me until they challenged, not my mind, they challenged my Ma'od, my infinity. My infinity was scoffed. The infinity of a person is a chayda absolutely connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zaydim Elitzuni Ad Me'ed. They mocked me until my Me'od could have been in a state of doubt. Why? Because of because David HaMelech was David HaMelech. And of course the pasuk finishes, even though I never lost sight. Why? Pasuk Nembeis. Because there's so many different translations. Mishpatecha means the fairness of your judgment. Mishpatecha means the severity of your judgment. But Me'olam means I remembered the big picture. That even when the judgment is very severe, if you hang in there, if you remain loyal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it turns around. And not Chas Hashem, maybe he changes his mind. There's a process. And time is when something takes more time than we'd like it to take, it's very exhaustive. David HaMelech was in difficult spots. And you have to have patience. And the Eibishter tests our patience. Wait, the old story about a guy who comes to the Eibishter and says that if 1,000 years is a day, he wants to borrow money for a couple of hours. So the Eibishter says, wait a few minutes. If 1,000 years is a day, how much is an hour and how much is a couple of minutes? 6 years. Wait, I don't want to wait a few minutes. I want it now. And that's the Zacharti Mishpatecha Me'elam. You have to remember that the Eibishter's judgment, both the dinim and the fairness, is Me'elam. It's a different sense. And then Me'elam Havaya, and therefore V'estecho. That gives me the warmth to not doubt and regret, but to find consolation in the fact that I've chosen to be a servant of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zalofa achazosni. I was gripped by terror, by fear. Mirishayim, from the sinners, eiz v'teresecha, of abandoning the Torah. I look at these sinners and I cannot believe it. I can't believe how could a Yid like a Chetef, Doyeg, G'dei Yisrael, become Rishayim and become eiz v'teresecha. Moreover, I can't even imagine what's going to be the consequence. The Gemara says, "Shuvu v'onam shevavim chutz me'acher." How are these people going to, so to speak, be able to be healed after this hamora, this rebellion against HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And of course, also zalafa achazosni merishoyim eiz v'teresecha is about the idea derech hashoyim sleicha, that they look to be doing so quite well, and it seems so unfair, and it creates doubt. And you have to be stronger than that doubt. And that's what David HaMelech is saying. Your Torah, your mitzvahs, especially your chukim, mitzvahs that are higher than reason, they were song to me when I found myself in a house of mogar. Mogar means a place of being an alien, or a time of being an alien. Different Rishonim explain it differently. In certain times and at certain places, I was an alien. I was having a lot of tzaddis, a lot of difficulties. I was a geir. And the Torah, chukacha, was midas ha'elu chukach. I drew strength from the Torah. And like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, when a person realizes the power of halach, that when the Torah paskins, that the esrog is missing a mashahu, it's puzzle. And if it has a mashahu, it's so unbelievable. It's a mitzvah, which involves the whole Seder Ishtalshalus. When you realize how powerful the Torah is, that a mashahu, the way Torah determines it, is the difference between nothing and infinity, it gives you great joy. And of course you also know that the Gemara says that David was punished for saying Zemidas Ha'elechach V'es Magura. David was punished for saying Zemidas Ha'elechach V'es Magura, and there's a whole husband of Chassidus, because the Eibishter expected more of David HaMelech. David is describing all of his Ibel admonition, and now he has to hold on to his faith, that the Nechama needs a Nechama, that the doubt and the regret needs a consolation, and the Eibishter expects more of him, and he holds it against him. And he's punished for falling back on the Torah's in Yechumen, like the famous thing, because if Yisrael, the from Acherayim, I don't have time to do that Maimer, even though it's the Chassidus on these 8 Pesukim, but everybody knows it from other places. Zacharti balayla shimcha, Hashem, by night I remembered your name. And I guarded Torah. A lot of the Rishonim say by day. And of course there's different translations of night. Some translations of night means darkness, and other translations of night means when I'm alone, solitude. And I was thinking as I was preparing that now is night, because we're all in a state of solitude, we're all alone. And when you're alone, you have time to think about the Eibishter. So the Mefarshim explain it, is there's the time that we dedicate to thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's the time that we actually learn Teiraseh Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Lashon HaChasidus, B'Klolos, this is Avodas HaTefillah and the Amal Torah. So David HaMelech says, B'Laylo Zacharti Shimcha. My nights are dedicated to learning Chassidus, to understanding Elokus, to remembering Elokus. And by day, I'm busy studying Torah and Paskining Shailas, as the Gemara says about David HaMelech. And of course, this is consistent with the Gemara in Masechta Brachos, that Kinya Rahaya Tol L'Mayla Ben Hashem Shel David HaMelech. And by Chatzeis Laila, there was the Ruach Dremis, which was Nasheves. David HaMelech would come sleep. He didn't want to sleep shit in the Shimin, and he would get up. And he would say Shiras a whole night. He said Shiras. He said Tillim. He said Shiras for Titzvachas HaKadosh Baruch. And then by day he was paskening shalas and studying Torah. And of course this is consistent with that vort that I told you the other day, that the Mojitz Rebbe said it's Habeche B'Shirei Zimra and Habeche B'Teira is the Zelba Habeche. By night it's Habeche B'Shirei Zimra, and by day it's Habeche B'Teira. And then of course Pasuk Nenvav says Zois Hoisali. The Torah, Hoisali, was for me. And I want you to know the word Hoisa, you can translate it in a number of different ways. Number one, Lashon Avoya, creation. Zois Hoisali, this Torah created me anew. And you can also translate the word from Hoisa, from like Tehei B'Havayasa Tehei. They have in Gemara, based on the Pesukim, that whenever it says Zois Tihiyah, Zois Yiyah, this means that it never changes. Zois Hoisali, this Torah created me anew. This Torah made a change in me which is forever. Because I guarded your Pekudah. Your Pekudah means that when you forget me, you'll remember me. When it looks like you forget me, you'll really remember me. Okay, I had a particularly hard time with these 8 Pesukim. And the content is a little bit bittersweet. And of course, I hope that I don't mislead. And the Rebbe should give us all siyata d'shmaya, which should be Yidden and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which was zeichet to the Gula Shleima, and then we'll takasi zeis nachomasi b'yoni. Okay, good morning. At 6 o'clock there's going to be a Maimer. At 6 o'clock there's going to be a Maimer, the continuation of yesterday's Maimer. At 9:30 there's a Sicha, and at 11 o'clock there's a Fabring. You're all welcome to join.